Next, we're going to go down to vote and approve the use of the choice program. Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, we are lucky this evening to have a few very important folks with us. I'm going to ask that our school resource officers, Joe Nimzik and Scott Gould, join us up front, but along with Billy Beers, who is the founder and CEO of the Choices program. One of the things that we have been doing here is working diligently to find ways to help our students who are struggling the most. And so we have another kind of pathway that we'd like to discuss this evening with the hopes of approving the use of the Choices program for our students who are most at risk. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Beers, to talk a little bit about the opportunities that await our kids.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to meet with everyone. I'd like to, if I could, I'll just give kind of a quick 10,000-foot overview of what it is that we do and why we do it. So I was one of these kids that gets coined as behavioral or addicted in substance. I grew up in New York. My dad died when I was 9 years old from alcoholism, and I was the one that found him. And from the age of 9 until the age of 29, I fell in every hole that these kids are falling in. And I'm 23 years in recovery myself. I spent a lot of time in corporate America and then got remarried. And when I got remarried, I happened to marry a board-certified behavior analyst. And I got to watch how she worked with kids that were nonverbal and unable to communicate back and forth. And I watched her teach them how to communicate. And it kind of sunk in, and I said, well, I've got all this recovery behind me, and now that we're starting this agency for ABA, let's take a look at some of the kids that I used to be like. And so we started doing a lot of research. We started going out. We met with all the recovery high schools throughout the state. I met with all the principals throughout the state that run the recovery highs. I met with a lot of different school districts. And I started to get the knowledge that we needed as far as what are these kids going through, what's happening with these kids in school, what's causing suspensions. And so we started a program that was started out in the Beverly area called the PASS program. And the PASS program stands for Positive Alternative to Student Suspension. And primarily what we're doing is we are, for any kids that get suspended for nonviolent reasons. So if a kid is suspended for substance, for tardiness, for no-shows, and they get a suspension, rather than that kid going home or coming to a Saturday breakfast club type detention, we have the students come to us, and we represent 22 districts throughout Worcester County. And so the student will come to us on day one of the suspension, and on day one they're given 5 different assessments. And so what we're doing is we're looking at them from a clinical lens. We're trying to find out, based on the suspension, why that happened and what's going on behind the scenes. So after those 5 assessments are done, the PASS program continues on, and it runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. every single day. And within that time frame, we give 2 groups. One is a clinical run group. One is social emotional or psycho-ed within that 9 to 2 time frame. In addition to that, they have 2 hours of academic time in a classroom with a teacher. And that time is spent using the work that the district provides us with that we know the kid has to keep up with. And so we have a full-blown teacher and tutor. They'll sit with the kids. They'll make sure that the academics are complete. During that whole process, if it's a 5-day suspension, they'll meet with a clinician at least once. They'll do at least 3 check-ins with a clinician for 15 minutes at a time. And the goal is to try to assess and analyze what took place, what happened, what are the triggers. But then the important part for us is when we do the transition back to the district, we give you a full-blown safety plan so that we don't need to suspend that child again. We don't need to add more trauma if it is clinical by nature. And so what that means is you simply call Choices. We pick that kiddo back up, and we bring them back to Choices, and we settle them down, whether it's for a day or 3 days or 5 days, whatever it takes. Our goal is to be a support mechanism for the district. And my goal personally is to, last year alone with PASS, we caught 76 kids under the age of 15 that had trauma starting at the age of 5, had never seen a clinician, and were suspended multiple times. So as this PASS program has been rolling out through the Worcester community, what we're finding is it's a great catch net for safety. We're catching these kids with trauma. We're allowing them to see what a clinician looks like, allowing them to see what Choices has to offer in a very dulled down, calm environment. And so our center is based in Worcester right now at 108 Grove Street. And we run at least 10 kids a day, depending upon the week. Some weeks are heavier than others. And but at the end of the day, the important part for us is really that transition back, because we don't want kids to stop what they start. We want them to finish their education, but we want to catch the trauma. We want to kind of capture what's going on and assist the district in helping that student progress into adulthood properly. In addition to just a PASS program, we also have an APG, which stands for an alternative peer group. Alternative peer groups were formed back in Texas about 15 years ago. Primarily, it's fun and recovery. So for kids that are addicted, kids that are dealing with substance issues, kids that are hitting these carts in school, they come to the afternoon program. In the afternoon program, we have another 2 groups. We run a clinical group. We also run another social, emotional, or psycho-ed group for that population. But there's more activities in the afternoon. So a lot of the kids that came in for PASS because they got suspended wanted to show up for the fun stuff afterwards. So we actually have kids with us from 9 a.m. till 7 o'clock at night. Some of these kids don't want to go home. And so in the APG, we do all sorts of fun stuff. Like we go for hikes. We go to beaches. We go to parks. We do a whole slew of things. We have a very robust summer program that all of our kids come back for, which is really cool. But the goal at Choices really is to provide access to care for the populations that we serve. And so when dealing with communities and towns, Blackstone, Uxbridge, Millville, we want to be here. We want to be present for you. And so we are, from a clinical perspective, we're rolling out clinicians and we're rolling out some case management to this area and this region in particular to help offset some of the chaos that's going on. And in return, what we're doing is we're trying to loop in and become inclusive with districts so that we can help with the alternative programming in any way, shape, or form that's going to assist the district, right? I also sit on a lot of opioid crisis boards throughout the state, and a lot of the districts are putting down line items on their opioid crisis funds that they don't need to, and overspending is going to happen. And so we're trying to work inclusively with that as well within the communities and municipalities. So we really are geared in with the adolescents. We only take care of adolescents. So our age range goes from 12 to 18. We do cover 8th grade with PASS, and we definitely cover 8th grade with diversion and APG. So the last program that I can mention real quickly is we did win the diversion grant for Worcester County 2 years ago. It's a 5-year grant, so we're going into our 3rd year. We have 97 kids in our diversion program, and that's 93 more than anybody else in the country. So we're working on a deflection model versus a diversion model, which allows us to keep the kids away from courts. So when school districts have to file things like CRAWs on kids for not showing up to school, we have 90 days to turn that CRAW around so that CRAW doesn't turn into a legal document, so that child who can't get to school on time because of they're depressed or anxious or addicted, they no longer have to add trauma to their case. And we can work right through that with DCF and probation in the courts. So we really are attempting to handle the population differently than ever before. We're not redoing anything that's been done before because it didn't work. And I think the key for Choices is all of our staff at Choices are afflicted personally with the disease concept. So we get it. We understand where these kids are. And once they come in, we love them until they can love themselves. And once they do, they don't want to leave. And so so we have a lot of good, fun, exciting stuff happening in Worcester, and there's no reason why we can't become inclusive in Blackstone and help out as much as possible here. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to come in, and the resource officers are very important as well with what we're doing, because these gentlemen are feet on the street. These are the gentlemen that can hear what's going on in the hallways. They can see what's going on. They can talk to these kids on a one-on-one level. And so Choices is trying to really gear up and partner with school resource officers and different departments so that we don't have to leave any kid behind. You know, it's almost like the Marines for me. We don't leave anybody behind. So if the district does have challenging adolescents, challenging situations going on with adolescents today, we have a lot of resources that we'd like to offer and try to help as much as we possibly can. So I think that could probably give you the 10,000-foot overview I was looking for. I'm happy to answer any questions and kind of go from there. And I don't know if you guys want to add anything or...
I don't have anything else.
We asked the SROs to join us because they actually brought the idea forward to Jill and I. And Jill, myself, and our 2 school resource officers actually went and visited Billy and his team, had an opportunity to take a tour. And then Jill Fowlis and Mr. Ducharme, Keith Ducharme, also went up and had a chance to tour the facility, meet with the staff, get a really good sense of the programming, what kind of that day-to-day would look like for those students who would be removed from school for, again, those nonviolent offenses. We do have a kind of a cluster of students that are wrestling with some addiction issues at the high school that I think this could be a really helpful resource. One of the things the school committee might recall at the evaluation cycle, the end of last year evaluation cycle, for me, we had some discussions around, we put a lot of provisions in place around vaping and some of the, substance issues. What is the next step we can take to help address some of these issues? And this was one that came forward as a really good opportunity. So we wanted to bring it before the committee tonight for a discussion and see if you have any questions for Billy. And
I just have one question. Once the process starts, a student is suggested to the program. How does it work with the parents getting the input if they're accepting of it? How's that process?
So there's 2 different takes that have to happen. One is from the district and one is from the parent. And so both take kind of a different route, but the goal is to get them to meet in the middle and have the parents come on the first day so that we can introduce ourselves, we can meet with the parents, they can see where the kid's going to be, and they can see what we're doing. We have a total open door policy, so any parents or anybody that wants to come through for a tour is always welcome. So yeah, that's one other point just to point out as well, where Choices is also a big part of the Uxbridge opioid crisis team. And so we're working diligently with Chief Monomoy and that whole team on a monthly basis. And these towns all fall into that. And so one of the things that Choices did right away was we went out and we kind of created this abatement process that the state's looking for and the federal government's looking for. So there are multiple towns joining forces to combine their opioid money. And once that money is combined, Uxbridge could be the fiscal determinator. So they'll manage the money. It's no impact to taxpayers. And because of the route that Chief Monomoy was taking, we actually submitted a grant to double the opioid funds that are available. So we're waiting right now to hear back on the RISE grant, which was a matching grant for $150,000, which would give this town and these communities a total of $300,000 to use towards opioid crisis. So there's a financial uptick too that we're hoping that we can get from the state.
Jessica.
Really, is there like a long-term support for these kids? Like if they, they're suspended that 3 days or whatever, and then they're not suspended again, but is there follow-up with those kids then?
Absolutely. So from a clinical perspective, what we'll do is we're not a 45-day assessment. We did try to we actually applied for the grant with BSAS. They told us we were a year ahead of them. So we didn't get the 45-day assessment, but in all actuality, that's what we really need. Because we need to show the state that we can take in a child and we can assess within 45 days and make the appropriate referral. Because what's happening now is these kids are ending up in the collaboratives and they're lost for years. And so that has to stop, and we're working on that. But we have kids that come in for a 10-day suspension, go back to school. 3 weeks later, there's another hiccup. They come back for another 10 days. So we can always, from a clinical perspective, we can work independently based on case by case. But our goal is to be there for these adolescents all the way through adulthood. So once they transition into adulthood, we have a transfer program with Lake Ave Recovery that we work. Jack Maroney is one of my mentors. And so he handles a lot of the young adult population once they outgrow Choices. So we do continue on with them, and we do have a young adult outpatient program for anyone up to the age of 28.
Any other questions?
So all the young adults, they're all together in this program?
So we have this all, yeah. So young adults they're in the mornings and it's outpatient only.
So a young adult means anybody from 19 to 28. And the reason for having a young adult population is because a lot of our kids have young adults for parents. A lot of the kids and families that we work with are in the Worcester Housing Authority, and some of these parents have 5 or 6 kids. They're single parents. There's domestic violence. So, we're looking at everything.
So you said it goes down to 12 years old and then up to 21.
Yeah. So 12 to 18 is the primary core. So past program is 12 to 18. The APG is also 12 to 18. And then the outpatient for young adults is only in the mornings from 9 to 11. So we keep it separate so that they're only in and out. But we have 4 different cohorts that we're working with right now. So we keep our 8th graders separate from our high schoolers. We make sure that everybody is doing their own thing within their cohort. We have 18,000 square feet on Grove Street, so we're fortunate with that. We can move kids around and make sure they're safe.
How does this look at? So what's the plan on the school side? We said we have a group of at risk. Like I'll ask my question too. Say if someone is suspended today, are they referred to you by the district? Is that how that?
Yeah, it depends on what the infraction is. But so let's say there's a situation where a student is under the influence of THC or something. Yes, instead of just suspending the kid for 3 days out of school, there is a removal from school. The kid is out of school for 3 days, but instead of sitting at home, doing whatever, we would make a referral to the PASS program through the Choices program. Ms. Fowlis, Mr. Ducharme would work with the family. Family would do the intake. We would do the intake on our end, and the student would end up going there for 3 days. There is transportation from the Choices program, and the cost right now, I believe, is $90 a day per student. And as the committee might be aware, we have a healthcare grant of about $100,000. That was the total amount. Jill is working on filing an amendment so that we can use that grant to pay for this, but we can't file the partner agreement until the committee approves it. So once that's done tonight, we would look for authorization through the healthcare grant to pay for the students to attend. So that student would go for the 3 days, return. There's actually a second meeting where members of, if I remember this correctly, Billy, members of your clinical team meet with our clinical team, and that student transitions back. If the student has another issue with substances, we can send the student back, and then you actually have at Choices a tiered system where you would increase your support. There's also an applied behavior analysis, like an ABA side to your work as well, where you actually can go into the home and do some clinical work with the families if necessary. Is that right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's so the in-home behavior services we offer. We do quite a few homes in Worcester County. We have 53 clinicians that are on the in-home behavior side. And so what that looks like is if a student is struggling with school or behavioral issues and they need help in home, we can send in a team, and that team will go into the home, and it's a short period. It's 3 months max. And it's not for the adolescent specifically, it's for the family. It's to help the family organize the adolescent better. It's to get that adolescent up and moving. So if we have for instance, a kid can't get up in the morning to get to school, we can send BCBAs out into the home in the morning so that we can shake the kid up, wake them up, and get them on a plan and start the process. So the in-home behavior piece is always a good option. We also have outpatient services for adolescents and young adults. We do a lot of group therapies. We do some parenting resources at the center monthly. And we're adding programs kind of weekly at this stage. The uptick in kids is quite a bit. A lot of kids out here.
So schools what's the level that we're going to? What's the catalyst that's going to put this student into the? So is it first time offender, or when does this kick in, this program?
I was going to say, we have other supports that are in place for our students in school.
but we are seeing students who are multiple offenders. It depends on what it is too. You know what I mean? We have students
So
who
what is do we have an idea what the structure would be to put a student into because it sounds like a great program. It does.
So they're currently working with Jill and Keith. There's currently 10 to 12 students this would probably be a very good fit for right now. That we've had multiple offenses of, vaping and THC or alcohol, those kinds of things, that we would want to refer specifically for some of the addiction work.
We're also really well connected with UMass Chan Medical School. And so we have our own, believe it or not, pediatrician mat providers for kids that are addicted. And we're working diligently with UMass right now. They've approved a building for us to go in with UMass on for a true blue PHP environment for adolescents and substance abuse. So they're really looking at this hard, and a lot of what we're seeing in our center, we're trying to have the medical field see what we're doing as well, because even the doctors are kind of lost with some of this stuff. They don't understand, what it means for a kid to be vaping, THC that's not real THC. It's all these dab pens that you see floating around the school. Those are it's fake. It's Delta 8. It's not THC, and there's most likely fentanyl or morphine in these carts. We collected 174 carts over the past year and a half, and we're having UMass do all the toxicology, and then we're presenting at the AMA board in Waltham this summer. So we're really keyed in on what is going on with the kids, what is it that they're ingesting, and why. And how they're getting it as well is a that's a job all on its own.
Any other questions? And Mr. Superintendent, what is the the motion would be to adopt or to allow the
Yes,
district to
as a
enter
pathway.
into an agreement
Yep.
with Choices?
Yes, yep. We would do an MOU with them.
If anybody's interested in making a motion to,
Make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the use of the choice program.
second.
motion made by Tara S., seconded by Tara L. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. Thank you very much for what you do. Thank you, gentlemen. Joe, thanks, Scott.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your day.